In 1980, the Rio-Niterói ferries transported an average of 140,000 people daily. In 2022, fewer than 24,000 people were transported. What caused the decline in passengers on the ferries?
Meu dinheiro caro aqui para poder pegar a barca. Quando foi 8h30 chegou uma barca, mas era tanta gente que não deu para entrar.
Isso é porque a passagem aumentou. 2,50.
O que eles fizeram, cara? Qual foi a cagada?
Essa é a CCR, é isso aí que a gente paga 4,50.
Toda essa precarização do cotidiano, o trabalhador tem que chegar até aqui e se defrontar com esse serviço péssimo que é aplicado pelas barcas SA. Serviço péssimo em diversas instâncias, a começar pela grande quantidade de trabalhadores, a grande demanda e o pequeno número de barcas para poder suprir essa demanda. Catástrofes que ocorrem nas barcas, acidentes, expressam toda a precarização. Os trabalhadores, eu me incluo nessa porque também sou usuário das barcas SE desde 2007, nós somos tratados como animais, como bichos, como bois indo para o matadouro. Só falta o segurança largar o chicote no nosso lombo, só falta chegar nesse estágio. E agora, para completar esse aumento absurdo para 4,50.
Then the holder of the ferry concession here was the owner of 1001, one of the biggest boat carriers which had a line competing with the boss. Obviously he was not interested in strengthening boat transportation. Arriving in 2011 to 2012, the state government in the Cabral administration alteras. He pushes away 1001, which has become a minority shareholder, and brings CCR. And to bring CCR, he raised the fare by 60%. He ended the ferry at night time. Reduced trips. Who was CCR at the time? It was the explorer of the Rio-Niterói Bridge Consortium. How does someone who makes money, the Rio-Niterói Bridge Consortium, which is the other alternative excluding the ferry, will have an interest in providing a service of quality?
There was never any interest from the political class of Fluminense about implementing the Guanabara Bay hydrographic plan, which is from 1984, folks. And it already pointed out 3 strategic ferry lines, the one from São Gonçalo. What is a city today with more than 1 million inhabitants? It's impossible for the São Gonçalo ferry line not to be economically viable. Preview the ferry line to Magé, which would be an attraction because it would resume the railway line to Petrópolis, which already existed 2 centuries ago, even bringing the attraction of tourism to the region.
Accessibility today is a fundamental issue, a right of the people. They should have access, and the government, the state needs to evaluate in a way, right? Efficient, effective, what are the best alternatives for you to do? This displacement, and obviously the waterway is an alternative that needs to be studied responsibly. And another
which would generate more employment in the capital. For us, because often we are rejected there because they are passing by, moving the bridge, the boss inside. This guy gets caught in the 45-minute traffic and he's going to be late every day. He arrives here dead tired, and the boat doesn't have traffic. It has its exact schedule. 20 minutes, 25 minutes, Niterói. There's a boat and a bus. The ferry is the best way. Habab crossing for half the price of my bus fare here. If here is $11, there is a $5 or $50 or $6 at most. I mean, why is the opponent based on mileage here, huh? Jeez. I am here. Niterói is there. I can see Niterói. Why do I pay for this? Politics here? It's dirty, just that, okay? And also another pressure, because if the ferry is counted at 6:50 a.m., oops. I won't take the 11 a.m. bus, I take it at 6:50 a.m. So the bus there to split the passengers, right? Because of the price, right? Not here. And if I cross by regular bus, overcrowded empires, etc., it's 11. If I cross by a bus that goes a bit faster, it's $17. I would use the ferry, me and one more, some hundreds, you know. People would give a boat for the question, for comfort, agility, the right time. I won't be crushed, I won't be stuck. With again and value, okay? So I believe that with the arrival of the ferry, the businessman will put a better bus, flatten this bus price to be able to share the passengers. Otherwise, you will lose the passengers.
We need to, it's not that the ferry project really gets off the paper. That's what's important. Bringing the ferries to São Gonçalo, as there are other projects for Magé, right? That what is being studied according to the information I have, and it will strengthen this area more and more. If the ferry came to São Gonçalo today would be very important for us, for the growth and development of the world, of our municipality, right, of employment and urban mobility, and all the social development within our municipality.
The story that the line to São Gonçalo did not happen because of breaking is false. At the time of the investigation commission, we took scholars. Various modes we took to places that were supposed to be the ferry terminal. And there was absolutely no alternative. I mean, it wasn't a resistance, a technical nature problem of acceleration that prevented the ferries. And there was a solution in both places that were seen as stations, terminal. This was used as an argument for the increase by the bus companies, which would lose. São Gonçalo is the second most popular municipality in the state. State is the municipality of the state with the largest proportional contingent, which moves daily to other municipalities like Niterói and to Rio de Janeiro. This is a villain for the bus companies. You set up a ferry from São Gonçalo to the center. There are many people who will stop riding the bus.
Issue also related to water transport is the maritime access and the land access. Once that, when people arrive at the terminal, they need to leave that terminal. How do you manage to do that easily? You also need to have this access, let's say, land-based, so that people can reach the point, finishing the maritime. But the main thing about these connections are usually silted up areas. You also don't have a front, expropriation of a front, so you can install a terminal even if it's offshore. It's not, you need to have a bridge. As in the case there, the terminal, in Caritas, for example, you have an access bridge. Technical solutions exist. But the problem is to assess the cost of these solutions, and the issue is the road access, the ground access you need to have so that people, sometimes a very large amount of people, arrive all at once. And how are they going to leave that region? Everything has a solution. Look, these are usually silted up areas, meaning you have shallow depths. So you already have a technical issue, meaning I will need vessels to make vessel projects that are needed. To speak less, in other words, to speak less also means that you can influence fewer people.
Our transport here is very precarious. We miss many opportunities due to lack of communication with the metropolis, with the capital. Because when you say where you live in Mage at Maua Beach, people don't give opportunities because of the difficulty of transportation, the cost increase about transport, and then we end up having to live here from where we live, having to go live near the capital, near Rio, to lie, to say that you live somewhere else. Ask for the address of someone who lives in the capital. So I see it's essential that this ferry can come here, especially since I'm sure that once the ferry arrives, our municipality, our area, it will develop because this will attract other things, other companies to come and also set up in our municipality. So this proximity for you to see a person who works in Rio, it takes around 3 to 4 hours. Going and 3 to 4 hours returning, you lose about 6 to 8 hours of your day, of your life inside a bus. You can't tell the story of Brazil, not to mention the story of Magé. But yes, he has the potential, historical, very large historical tourism. This is the first train station in Latin America. It's right here. Yes, it's really frustrating to be so close to the capital. From here, we can see Sugarloaf Mountain, Christ the Redeemer. We can see it from the governor. And to know that, for example, Paquetá, which is 5 minutes by boat from here, and the ferry goes there, Paquetá. And she didn't come here. Right here on the coast is where there is a huge potential. The ferry coming here would not only serve the municipality of Magé, but the entire region.
When taking over, carried out a digital competition according to the narrative, right? The people with, it was unfair competition. Transa couldn't keep up. And what you're seeing there is bankruptcy that was not removed by the Brazilian Navy, was not given. The commercial was abandoned without any use from the residents. It's an economic, social, and environmental impact. It's a great pity to see such a modern facility, isn't it? Do you have that catamaran operating to Niterói, simply being destroyed, wasted?
Mobilized in an attempt to, the important thing is, this new service, the basic needs that have to meet the island with dignity, not only its residents who have specific characteristics and needs, like the issue of tourism, which is a very strong economy for the island's revitalization, for the movement of life, of the local economy. Most of it is largely linked to the tourism chain, the economic chain of tourism. So the ferry plays a much bigger role than just serving residents, like bringing visitors to know the island, bring people, take people with comfort, with dignity, with options, with a choice of timing, with onboard service options, a better service, even using it as a mechanism of pressure on the public authorities so that they receive the resources. She is what they were claiming, and that, in a way, justice acknowledged things that I personally find quite questionable. But anyway, this happened, and they implemented this schedule that I think no matter what, it was really bad pirate regardless of a legal issue. I think you have to have a different perspective for a community that is so dependent on your service, and that you should build a partnership with it. So I think there should have been a conversation with the community, what kind of solution this could give. The thing was decided unilaterally. No one considered the specific needs of the community in the emergency hours of tourism. In the times that would be good, it was a decision made unilaterally, and we had to accept this for a long time. In other words, really bad. Bad for all sides. Nobody wants that thing that happens, that everybody loses. Maybe CCR won an end by receiving this value, using us as a pressure mechanism. That's what's really uncouth about what happened. It's what I always joke about, capitalism not working out, doesn't play. Don't play to lose at a time like this. And I think it has overlooked the lives of many families here who were very harmed.
What we have been experiencing in this last decade, and more than a decade, is the result of the privatization of the port. An essential service was delivered to the island, absolutely essential. Here we have no way to get to any point from Rio de Janeiro, if not by ferry. So handing this over to a private company, the result is what we saw. Terrible services, delays, systematic delays. You have a professional appointment, you have a medical consultation in the center of Rio, of the neighborhood. You depend on the ferry leaving reasonably on time, and it delays 10 minutes, 20, 30. Human occupation in Guanabara Bay has never been smart. Water transport has never been properly exploited. So what we have is an underutilization. Human occupation was made half-heartedly for Bahia. And until today, we don't have a vessel that, for example, leaves from the depths and comes. When you come here, you would have much fewer cars during rush hour, polluting, causing traffic, taking away quality of life from citizens, and would get here in much less time than coming, jamming from Fundão Island to the end of the city, and then catching a ferry and traveling for an hour or so. So like the gain would be for everyone, for those who will directly use a new line, and for those who are not going to use, because everyone will benefit from better traffic, less pollution, etc. There's a phrase we use a lot here on the island, right? What is to say? We used to complain about the coinage, because it had some deficiencies and such, but we were happy and didn't know it. Because when the private dealership came, hell broke loose for them.
There are clear situations in Rio. The study proved it. You see Governor's Island, which is an important neighborhood in the city of Rio de Janeiro. Brazilian, which contributes to the congestion on Avenida Brazil. Everyone knows, with a minimum of good sense and technical knowledge. The transport that connects Guarana Islands with 100% of the city, it should be the ferries. Now, because the small room has always been considered by the concessionaires. Ugly duckling, and investment in the line has never been made. On this line to Governor's Island,
The schedules were planned to render boat transport unviable. This has been debated countless times in public hearings, in the public rules, in the CBA legislation. And an explanation was never given as to why the company and the state would opt for completely inappropriate times. A ferry that was here, which never gave 20 people, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Who's going to leave Governor's Island 2 in the afternoon for the city sky? So it was totally incompatible. And it's the same, all of this forces us, the islanders, to use the bus transportation. So when you catch it in the morning, and even the air-conditioned one, which is the selective bus, which is more expensive, much more expensive, in the morning and late afternoon, it's packed with people, it's crowded. Then in a neighborhood that has only had 2 bus companies since the 40s, approximately 40, 50, the owner is the same owner. So that, in other words, it's a whole public policy to favor this monopoly and make bar transport unfeasible.
Studies by Ferjan System indicate that 14 new waterway connections are highly viable. And they could take more than 100,000 cars off the streets and reduce the damages caused by traffic congestion.
O edital de licitação para a escolha da nova operadora das barcas pode trazer boas notícias para os passageiros. Isso porque ele prevê novos trajetos até São Gonçalo e aos aeroportos.
A Justiça do Rio não aceitou o pedido da concessionária Barcas S.A. para rescindir o contrato. A empresa diz que está tendo prejuízo por não ter sido autorizado o aumento das passagens.
A Secretaria Estadual de Transportes confirmou que pretende incluir na licitação novas linhas de barcas que ligam a Praça 15 a Duque de Caxias.
É o preparo de uma infraestrutura de dragagem, de construção de cais, uma série de providências de engenharia que são viáveis.
O Estado vai licitar as barcas de Niterói, nós vamos estar ali engatados no projeto ali. Uma nova licitação agora, eu espero que essa licitação seja aberta.
Junto com o Instituto INPH, já fez todo o levantamento, uma empresa pública, uma empresa do governo federal, já fez a viabilidade técnica, viabilidade econômica, já é uma realidade.
Pode ser resultado de um sistema que deixou de ser integrado, né?
In other words, the Virgin pointed out a study with substance that for the economic activity of the state, the impact that it receives, ladies and gentlemen, deputies, of the duration of a trip today from a worker who commutes from any corner, extreme end of Guanabara Bay, to the employment area, which is the city of Rio de Janeiro, and then Niterói, where all studies indicate that the metropolitan region of Rio de Janeiro is where the citizens spend the most time on their mass transport. And we all know that this indicator greatly impacts the economy of Rio de Janeiro.
The modeling is already at BNDES, so it's already going to start the bidding process. And I have a commitment from the concessionaire not to stop the service until then. We must remember that one of the reasons the concession being in deficit, these are lines that should be municipal. We proceeded today and they are state level.
On March 2nd, 2023, the Rio de Janeiro justice system ratified an agreement between the state of Rio de Janeiro and the concessionaire CCR Barcas for the continuation of waterborne transportation services, stipulates compensation of over $750 million to CCR and an extension of the operating contract for up to 24 months, during which a new concessionaire will be selected.
Brand to make the Praça 15 line viable, Paquetá, Praça 15, Governor's Island, Fundão Island, which is a ferry line with high economic viability, of great social interest. There is no need for the state government. State, that's what Brazilian law says. And this controversy happened for many years until the National Waterway Transport Agency, from the first Lula government, Yashuko Sabas, deliberated on this so the city of Rio could bid for these routes. It makes no sense. And I heard this from the former Transport Secretary Delmo Pinho, once called me to say, Sergio Ricardo, don't tell anyone, but look, you guys hit the mark. There's none, he told me before the pandemic. The state government has no interest in operating clay transportation. When was this Guanabara Bay waterway plan made in 1984 by the state government? The forecast at the time was that the daily passenger demand on the ferries to Governor's Island was about 10,000 passengers. And we never managed to reach this demand, even with the increase in population. And the main factor of this, in my opinion, is the absence of the integration of the transport service.
People didn't understand, they don't realize the fact of you have a bill, you
you have water, and you're standing there next to a plant without a bottle for 2 hours. How do you explain that? That's it. We could sense a feeling of the businessman, of a certain competition. And that actually happened in the past decades. He, in a way, was one of the responsible directors. It was the end system. Not the main one, but one of the responsible vectors. Now, when you understand this, and when the entrepreneur realizes that the system complements the other's place, that the mix of the person who suddenly would not use the Viario transport, now she will use that transport. That termite, he integrates into a ship and goes to another, a more distant region. In the end, he realizes that people are moving, but inevitably to make that move, a considerable portion of the population will inevitably have to board, right? In many directions to reach a transit station. It's an alternative, no doubt about it. Of course, it has to be thought out and without excuses. I found out about the integrated, and is it already like this? As the years go by, people change their destinations, right? A region that no longer exists. Dude, how awful. So, where you have the base boarding place is not always the sought after place of that population, so it needs to be integrated into the road system. Once integrated, is without a doubt is going to offer people quality, quick transportation, and yes, it will be a very important alternative for the transportation system of the population, not just Rio de Janeiro, but any metropolitan area in the country that has Bahia and has the option to transport for travel.
No doubt that you want to think about improving urban mobility in the metropolitan area of Brazil, of Rio, which has 75% to 80% of the state's population. The state, be it from the standpoint of commuting to work or school, or of having more job opportunities, employment, waterway transport, investing even in new lines, and improving the quality of bookshelves is an essential, critical knot. I think, considering the state of Rio de Janeiro from the perspective of metropolitan mobility, they go through thinking about waterway transport, allowed by Guanabara Bay.
When the will of the people is supreme, the government is a faithful servant. But when the will of a ruler is supreme, the people become slaves.